Calgary Foothills.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to introduce Bill number 203, an act to amend the Business Corporations Act. This bill amends Chapter 215 of the statute in Alberta 1981. This new section will give an official of the registry power to demand an accounting from receivers and to apply to the court to have the receivership expedited in the interests of those affected.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Foothills has moved first reading of Bill 203, an act to amend the Business Corporations Act. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. So ordered.
Bill number 203, an act to amend the Business Corporations Act, introduced by the Honourable Member Mrs. Black, is now read a first time.
I request leave to introduce for first reading Bill 204, an act to amend the Labor Relations Code. It is an amendment to that act whereby the right to strike will be granted to certain people, employees.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Glengarry has moved first reading of Bill 204, an act to amend the Labor Relations Code. Those members in favor of first reading, please say aye. Opposed, please say no. So ordered.
Bill number 204, an act to amend the Labor Relations Code, introduced by the Honourable Member Mr. Decor, is now read a first time.
Edmonton Glengarry. 205, Edmonton Glengarry.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I request leave to introduce for first reading Bill 205. This is an act entitled Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. One more time with feeling, Mr. Speaker, this act is intended to make it mandatory for the government to release information, documents at its own level and at any level of government, municipal or universities, anything involving monies that are given to agencies or organizations by the provincial government.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Glengarry has further moved first reading of Bill 205, Freedom of Information and Protection of Personal Privacy Act. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 205, Freedom of Information and Protection of Personal Privacy Act, introduced by the Honourable Member Mr. Decor, is now read a first time.
Edmonton Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to introduce Bill 206, the Community Health Center Act. This bill would enable a variety of low-cost, front-line community health centers to offer health care services by a variety of licensed providers on a salary basis. It would also enable government to directly fund the operational and capital costs of these non-profit health care centers.
Good idea.
Member for Edmonton Centre has moved first reading of Bill 206, Community Health Clinic Act. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 206, Community Health Clinic Act, introduced by the Honourable Member Reverend Mr. Roberts, is now read a first time.
Edmonton Calder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to introduce Bill number 207, the Children's Rights Act. This legislation will provide children with legal guarantees to their rights, modeled on the Declaration of Children's Rights passed by the United Nations. This bill, when passed, would make a significant statement, and that is that we cherish the children in this province and we have an obligation to ensure that their basic needs are met.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Calder has moved first reading of Bill 207, Children's Rights Act. Those members in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 207, Children's Rights Act, introduced by the Honourable Member Ms. Melsness, is now read a first time.
Edmonton Beverley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask leave of absence to introduce Bill 208, a Rent Review Act. The purpose of this act, Mr. Speaker, was to create a rent review mechanism as part of the Ombudsman's office. This rent review process would protect tenants from being gouged, and only increases which would be justified would be approved.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Beverley has moved first reading of Bill 208, Rent Review Act. Those members in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 208, Rent Review Act, introduced by the Honourable Member Mr. Wozniak, is now read a first time.
Mr. Navanmore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to introduce Bill 209, being an act to provide for equal pay for work of equal value. This bill, when passed, will in some measure work to correct the economic inequities experienced by women in both the private and public sector workplaces.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Avonmore has moved first reading of Bill 209, an act to provide for equal pay for work of equal value. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 209, an act to provide for equal pay for work of equal value, introduced by the Honourable Member Ms. M. Lang, is now read a first time.
Edmonton Meadowlark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request leave to introduce Bill 210, being the Ecological Reserves and Heritage Rivers Act. This act would require that the province of Alberta establish 17 ecological reserves to reflect each of the 17 ecological regions in this province, that these reserves be of adequate size, and it would also require that the province of Alberta participate in the Canadian Heritage Rivers program.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Meadowlark has moved first reading of Bill 210, Ecological Reserves and Heritage Rivers Act. Those members in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 210, Ecological Reserves and Heritage Rivers Act, introduced by the Honourable Member Mr. Mitchell, is now read a first time.
Red Deer North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to introduce Bill number 211, which is titled An Act to Control the Sale of Products which are not made in conformity with Alberta environmental standards. This bill would require a manufacturer outside of Alberta who manufactures a product in a method not meeting Alberta standards to label the product accordingly so that Alberta consumers would be alerted that the product was manufactured using environmentally unsound methods.
The Honourable Member for Red Deer North has moved first reading of Bill 211, an act to control the sale of products which are not made in conformity with Alberta Environmental Standards Act. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 211, an act to control the sale of products which are not made in conformity with Alberta environmental standards, introduced by the Honourable Member Mr. Day, is now read a first time.
Calgary McKnight.
Mr. Speaker, I request leave to introduce Bill 212, the Alberta Youth Conservation Corps Act. Mr. Speaker, this act will establish a voluntary youth conservation corps to undertake conservation projects in Alberta's parks.
The Honourable Member for Calgary McKnight has moved first reading of Bill 212, Alberta Youth Conservation Corps Act. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. So ordered.
Bill number 212, Alberta Youth Conservation Corps Act, introduced by the Honourable Member Mrs. Gagnon, is now read a first time.
Edmonton Whitemud.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I request leave to introduce Bill 213, an act to amend the Alberta Income Tax Act. Mr. Speaker, the purpose of this bill is to provide for a renter's rebate, taking into consideration the skyrocketing rents Albertans are facing today due to the increasing vacancy rate that is occurring, or the increasing decline in the vacancy rate that is occurring. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Whitemud has moved first reading of Bill 213, an act to amend the Alberta Income Tax Act. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 213, an act to amend the Alberta Income Tax Act, introduced by the Honourable Member Mr. Wickman, is now read a first time.
Calgary Buffalo.
Mr. Speaker, I request leave to introduce a bill being the Non-Smokers Health Act. This bill provides for the right of all Alberta employees, government and non-government, to work in healthy, smoke-free workplaces and would restrict smoking to designated smoking areas.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Buffalo has moved first reading of Bill 214, Non-Smokers Health Act. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 214, Non-Smokers Health Act, introduced by the Honourable Member, Mr. Schumer, is now read a first time.
Calgary Forest Lawn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to introduce Bill 215, the Public Accounts Committee Act. This act would improve financial accountability in this province's public sector.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Forest Lawn has moved first reading of Bill 215, Public Accounts Committee Act. Those members in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 215, Public Accounts Committee Act, introduced by the Honourable Member, Mr. Pashak, is now read a first time.
Edmonton Jasper Place.
Mr. Speaker, I request leave to introduce Bill 216, an act to promote recycling industries in Alberta. Mr. Speaker, this is an industrial development initiative aimed at promoting industries to process the waste which is gathered through some of the Blue Box programs. It includes procurement initiatives in the government, but also recycling initiatives in the private sector. It provides that there should be no incentives available for virgin resource extractions which are not available to recycling industries in particular, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Jasper Place has moved first reading of Bill 216, an act to promote recycling industries in Alberta. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 216, an act to promote recycling industries in Alberta, introduced by the Honourable Member, Mr. McGuinness, is now read a first time.
Edmonton Belmont.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request leave to introduce Bill 217, an act to amend the Labour Relations Code. Mr. Speaker, when eventually passed, this legislation will prohibit the use of replacement workers during a strike or lockout.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Belmont has moved Bill for first reading to Bill number 217, an act to amend the Labour Relations Code number 2. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 217, an act to amend the Labour Relations Code number 2, introduced by the Honourable Member, Mr. Sigurdsson, is now read a first time.
Calgary Mountain View.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to introduce Bill number 220, being an act to amend the Landlord and Tenant Act. Mr. Speaker, this bill would assist tenants by incorporating stronger security of tenure provisions. It would require the proper maintenance of property, better protection of security deposits, and this bill also, Mr. Speaker, brings roomers and boarders under the protection of the Landlord and Tenant Act.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Mountain View has moved first reading of Bill 220, an act to amend the Landlord and Tenant Act. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 220, an act to amend the Landlord and Tenant Act, introduced by the Honourable Member, Mr. Hawksworth, is now read a first time.
Member for Panoka-Rimby.
Mr. Speaker, I request leave to introduce Bill 221, being the Alberta Employee Investment Act. Mr. Speaker, this bill provides for a support program for employee investment in the businesses for which they work.
The Honourable Member for Panoka-Rimby has moved first reading of Bill 221, Employee Investment Act. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 221, Employee Investment Act, introduced by the Honourable Member, Mr. Johnson, is now read a first time.
Member for Calgary-Milliken.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to introduce Bill number 228, an act to amend the Liquor Control Act. This bill will amend Chapter L17 of the Revised Statutes of Alberta, 1980. It adds a new section which will allow civil action to be brought for damages against anyone who serves alcohol in contravention of the Act, particularly to those who are apparently intoxicated or under the influence of drugs, and include them in full or proportional liability in respect of the award of damages.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Milliken has moved first reading of Bill 228, an act to amend the Liquor Control Act. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 228, an act to amend the Liquor Control Act, introduced by the honourable member, Mr. Schreit, is now read a first time.
Member for Bow Valley.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to introduce Bill 230, an act to amend the Irrigation Act. Mr. Speaker, this would allow district irrigation district boards to become involved in other activities than delivering water to irrigated farmers.
The honourable member for Bow Valley has moved first reading of Bill 230, an act to amend the Irrigation Act. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. So ordered.
Bill number 230, an act to amend the Irrigation Act, introduced by the honourable member, Mr. Musgrove, is now read a first time. Tabling returns and reports.
Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to file 4 copies of the report that has been prepared by the Conflict of Interest Review Panel, which I appointed last year. An assessment of this report is being done by the government, Mr. Speaker, but I wanted each member to have a copy, and that is being arranged now. I'd like to, on behalf of all the members here in the legislature, to take this opportunity to thank the members of the review panel, the Chief Judge of the Provincial Court of Alberta, the Honourable Edward Wakowicz, Walter Buck, friend of most of the members of the legislature, and Frank King, who from Calgary, who established himself in a high degree of efficiency in the manner in which he represented us in handling the Winter Olympics in 1988 in Calgary. Mr. Speaker, I urge all members to give this report their attention. The government will be responding in due course.
Minister of Education, is next on this.
I'll tell the Minister.
Sorry, thank you. Chair is locked in the wrong time warp. Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to table with the Assembly the annual report of the Alberta Dental Association for the year ended June 30, 1989, and the annual report of the Alberta Association of Registered Nurses for the year ended September 30, 1989, and copies will be distributed to all members. I'm also tabling the annual report of the Glenrose Rehabilitation Hospital for fiscal year ending March 31, 1989, the Vital Statistics Annual Review for 1988, the annual report of Alberta Hospital Edmonton for the fiscal year ending March 31, 89, and these reports have been distributed to all members previously. Additionally, I am pleased to table the audited financial statements for the Alberta Cancer Board and Alberta Hospital Ponoka for the fiscal year ending March 31, 1989. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I wish to table responses to questions number 219, 227, and 233 outstanding from last year's sitting of the Assembly.
Member for Edmonton Highlands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to file with the Assembly 4 copies of an alternative throne speech for the commencement of the second session of the 22nd Alberta Legislature, prepared by the Leader of the Official Opposition, the New Democrats.
Member for Westlock Sturgeon.
Mr. Speaker, I'd wish to file 4 copies of the defeated recommendations of the Standing Committee of the Alberta Heritage Savings Trust Fund and their proposers.
Honourable member, do care. On this matter, I'd like it submitted to the chair, please. There's a concern that this is amounting to the submission of a minority report from a committee, which is in violation of our own standing orders 65, as a matter of fact. So the chair is not prepared to accept this before the House without review. Could the pages please convey it? Thank you very much. Love to have one. No, please. The page is behind Honourable Member.
It's on that on the very same one that you listed.
Order, please, Honourable Member. There's a bit of confusion. Would you please hand the document to the page behind you? Sorry, honorable member. Thank you. The chair will reserve opinion until tomorrow.
Introduction of special guests.
Forgive me, honorable, forgive me, clerk. Perhaps now the chair can table pursuant to statute member services orders number 5 to 17, 1989, and numbers 1 to 3, dated 1990. Thank you. Thank you.
Introduction of special guests.
Minister of Forestry.
Mr. Speaker, members have tree seedlings on their desks this afternoon, and the tree seedling stickers and lapel pins have been provided by the Alberta Forestry Association and Organizing Committee for Peace River for the 1990 Provincial Forest Capital. Each year, the Alberta Forest Association for our National Forest Week designates a provincial forest capital, and the designation recognizes a forest resource-based community where private and corporate citizens have demonstrated a commitment to responsible forest management. May 6th to 12th is Forestry Week, even though it's an all-year-long program. And Peace River, Mr. Speaker, has earned the distinction, and I, along with my colleague, the Honorable Al Adair, would like to take this opportunity to recognize members of the Provincial Forest Capital of 1990 Organizing Committee who are in the Visitors Gallery. And I'd ask them to rise as I call out their names. Michael Proctor, the Mayor of Town of Peace River. Joan Goldhawk, Manager, Peace River Board of Trade. Frank Oberle, Representative, Alberta Forest Industry. Chuck Gale, President, Alberta Forestry Association. Carl Leary, Superintendent, Peace River Forest. And Cindy Menu, Secretary Treasurer of the Organizing Committee. Would you give them a cordial congratulations?
The member for Edmonton Belmont, followed by the Minister of Advanced Education.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure to introduce to you and to all members of the Assembly some 36 very patient grade 6 students from the Belvedere Elementary School. They're accompanied today by their teachers, Mr. Brian Christie and Mr. David Cunn. I would ask, they are seated in the public gallery. I'd ask that they rise and receive the traditional welcome of the Assembly.
Speaker, the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, or SAIT, is known across Canada for the programs it offers. We have in the government members gallery today the president of the student union, Mr. Andre Mamprin, who represents those 8,500 students, and I would ask Mr. Mamprin to please stand and be welcomed by the members of the House.
Thank you. Minister of Public Works, Supply and Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure today to introduce to you, sir, and to all members of the Legislative Assembly some very important guests from the community of Barrhead. In the members' gallery, we have 24 students from Lawrence Jenkins Senior High School who are accompanied by their two teachers, Mr. Marvin Sheets and Mrs. Rose Smith. And in addition, Mr. Speaker, we have visiting of us from Barrhead, Mr. Robert O'Brien, and his two grandchildren who happen to reside here in the city of Edmonton, Aaron O'Brien and Darcy O'Brien. All of our guests, Mr. Speaker, are in the members' gallery, and I would ask them to rise and would ask all of my colleagues to extend them a very warm welcome to the Alberta Legislative Assembly.
Ministerial statements.
Minister of Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Shirley McClellan and I would like to advise our fellow members of the Legislative Assembly that yesterday, March the 11th, marked the official kickoff of Agriculture Week in Alberta. Agriculture Week will continue through Saturday, March the 17th. Agriculture Week 1990 began unofficially last Friday evening when 3 outstanding Albertans were admitted to the Agriculture Hall of Fame at a ceremony here in Edmonton. Agricultural celebrations will continue in rural and urban centers across the province during the days ahead. I wish to take this opportunity to encourage my colleagues and all Albertans to take time this week to consider the essential role agriculture plays in our lives. Agriculture is the engine that powers our province's economy, and the vigorous communities that are centered on farming and its related enterprises give the social fabric of our province its greatest strength. I urge the people of Alberta to take part in Agriculture Week activities held in their areas and to join us in the celebration of agriculture in our province. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, of course I would like to join with the Minister of Agriculture in congratulating those involved in this very important Alberta industry. Mr. Speaker, I think we must recognize, though, at this time that the family farm is basically under attack. We know that there's going to be rural depopulation. The government's own document, I believe it was called Sharing and Caring, the social policy, indicated there'd be 93,000 less people in Alberta between the year 1981 and the year 2001. We've seen the recent figures from Alberta Wheat Pool saying that there would be farm income in real terms would decline in the next year by some 52 to 54%, Mr. Speaker. So while we want to encourage people to participate in Agriculture Week, we must not hide our head in the sand that there are some real serious problems in agriculture in this province. Now, over the years, Mr. Speaker, we have advocated a number of measures that we think that would go some way to protecting the family farm, whether it be dealing with debt mediation, whether it be dealing with shared deficiency payments with the federal government, while it be, frankly, recognizing that the trade deal is putting orderly marketing under attack, Mr. Speaker, and the minister and I may disagree about orderly marketing, but I can assure you there will be less family farms if we don't have it, Mr. Speaker. It seems clear to us that there has to be some change in policies from Ottawa and from Edmonton if we're going to be celebrating Agriculture Week in the future with a lot of people in rural Alberta, because if we don't change some policies, there's not going to be a lot of people left in rural Alberta, Mr. Speaker.
Minister of Consumer and Corporate Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to inform the House that the 1989 Securities Amendment Act and its regulations will come into force March 15th, 1990. This act addresses many changes in the securities market, with particular emphasis on deterring the misuse of insider trading for the buying or selling of stocks and other securities. It also provides new rules regarding takeover bids that will protect the interests of minority shareholders. This government, Mr. Speaker, has publicly committed itself to improving the environment in which the financial consumers and investors must operate. We want a fair and honest financial marketplace. We will do what is necessary to protect the integrity of that marketplace. These new rules will help do that. Anyone convicted of using insider trading information to trade stocks or other securities will face stiff penalties. Maximum fine levels will rise to 3 times the profit made from trading, or $1 million, and or up to 5 years in jail. Previous maximum levels were $5,000 for individuals and $75,000 for corporations. The takeover bid legislation is to offer some comfort to investors of modest amounts. The new rules ensure fair treatment for the minority shareholder in cases where the purchaser is attempting to gain control of a company. Mr. Speaker, I must emphasize the context in which this legislation is being enacted. While the Securities Amendment Act deals with securities industry exclusively, the other areas of the financial products and services marketplace are being addressed by myself and my colleague, the Provincial Treasurer. Last session, this House passed legislation governing Alberta's credit unions. The Treasurer will be introducing legislation on loans and trust businesses, and I will be introducing legislation under the title of the Financial Consumer Act, which will ensure that consumers receive more and better information to assist them in their decision-making. All these legislative initiatives arise from the government's recognition that the financial marketplace has become more complex and under constant review. Consumers require better tools to form the basis of decisions that they will make. We will be offering these tools. I look forward to discussing the details of upcoming legislation with members of the House.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I'm amazed all these ministerial statements. Thank you to the ministers. Mr. Speaker, this may be the case as we've gone through this bill and debated it, and as the minister is well aware, we supported most of the recommendations, did make some suggestions for improvements, I think specifically dealing with disclosure, and I may look forward to the Financial Consumers Act. Maybe the minister is going to allude to that. Unfortunately, it may be the situation of closing the barn door after the horses have got out because of what's happened in this province dealing with financial institutions, Mr. Speaker. But most initiatives we will support, Mr. Speaker, and we have, and we'll look forward to other matters that the government wants to bring up. But I want to just stress one thing, if I may, that you can have the best rules and regulations in the world. Part of the problem that we faced, especially with the principal group, Mr. Speaker, was the enforcement. And you can have the best rules there. If you're not prepared to enforce them, Mr. Speaker, then they're not worth the paper that they're printed on. So I hope that the minister is concerned with this and that in the future, that while having the rules and regulations there, the enforcement will be just as tough, Mr. Speaker, so we never get into these situations again.
Hear, hear.
Oral question period.
Yes. Mr. Speaker, to the Premier. Mr. Speaker, it has been clear, I believe for some time, perhaps over a year or so, that the Meech Lake Constitutional Accord is in serious trouble and will probably not be ratified by the June deadline unless there are changes made, Mr. Speaker. I noticed, Mr. Speaker, over the weekend that the Premier made some comments that he fears for the accord and that the future of Canada. He was talking about without what he calls a political accord. Mr. Speaker, I want to say to the Premier that this time I agree with him. I also fear for the country. Mr. Speaker, it seems that there's a growing intolerance in the country from all aspects of the country, and I worry about where we're going and whether there will be a Canada, Mr. Speaker, if there aren't some changes made in this constitutional accord. Mr. Speaker, I also worry about the rhetoric, the overblown rhetoric that is occurring at this particular time, Mr. Speaker. And my question to the Premier, because I believe that he can play a useful role in these last 2 months, Mr. Speaker, but my question to the Premier is this: is he prepared to recommend to other First Ministers some changes to this accord, to the Meech Lake Accord, that would make it more acceptable to a majority of Canadians?
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to have the Honourable Leader of the Opposition raise this matter, knowing that he and his party supported it unanimously when it went through the legislature, and that he and they are strong supporters still. Mr. Speaker, I am concerned. I'm concerned because of how strongly I feel about the potential greatness of this country. But this country will only be great and will only reach its potential if we deal within our country in a unified basis. If we concentrate on unity and concentrate on working together in a Canadian way that has been marked by generosity of spirit, compassion for other parts of this country, for cooperation, and for wanting to pull together. Mr. Speaker, in some ways right now, that isn't happening. And it bothers me, and I think in the coming weeks and months that there will be considerable stress and pressure on leaders in this country to see if we can't combat that kind of feeling. So, Mr. Speaker, while the Meech Lake Accord has gone through the House of Commons is endorsed by 3 national parties, has been signed by 10 premiers at one point, and is now gone through 8 legislatures, there is still concern for the Accord proceeding fully through to constitutional reform. I believe, Mr. Speaker, while it is not perfect, it is that which we can achieve at this stage and gives us a springboard to go on and do so much more in such matters as Senate reform. In any event, Mr. Speaker, we now have a report due from Senator Murray as a result of his trip across the country as requested by premiers at the last, for all First Ministers at the last First Ministers Conference. I'm looking forward to that report.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I frankly believe, Mr. Speaker, that if there aren't some changes, that it will be dead, and perhaps we can save the best part of Meach with some changes, Mr. Speaker. My question specifically to the Premier: would this government promote or support a political accord dealing with some changes to Meach at this particular time in an effort to save some of the best parts of it?
I don't know whether the honourable member really means save the best parts, Mr. Speaker. I believe, and I've been talking with other First Ministers about the possibility of some have a view that there could be a parallel accord. Others have the view, and I have discussed this with some and have discussed it recently publicly, a political accord. That is, Mr. Speaker, some type of an agreement between First Ministers that at this stage wouldn't proceed through each of 10 legislatures in the House of Commons because of the time frame involved. And, Mr. Speaker, there is some work going on in that area. But, Mr. Speaker, I think for the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, if he thinks reasonably about the period of time in front of us, that the Meech Lake Accord is the one, as imperfect as it might be in some people's minds, is the one that could proceed through to make constitutional reform a reality and bring the benefits, the many benefits that are in that accord to the people of Alberta and all Canadians. And, Mr. Speaker, I'd urge the honourable members to, in speaking to constituents or people all across this country, that they emphasize the need for unity in Canada, that they emphasize the need for generosity of spirit, that they emphasize the need of caring about our nation and looking ahead to building a great country, not tearing it down.
Mr. Speaker, I certainly agree with the last sentiments, but I also recognize the reality of what's going on, Mr. Speaker, and I honestly believe that if there aren't changes to Meech, that it's going to be the all or nothing. We're going to get the nothing situation. So just to follow up, Mr. Speaker, because of the time frame, the lack of time that the Premier is talking about, and because of the crisis to our country, will the Premier be urging the Prime Minister to call a First Minister's Conference in the next month or so to see if changes can be made so that there's some support for a revised accord and perhaps for the future of the country? Will he be calling for that?
Good. Mr. Speaker, I have said this publicly, and I have said it several times in the last few days to the Prime Minister and other First Ministers, that I believe since the Meech Lake Accord was generated from 10 governments and the federal government and came to a decision and an actual accord amongst the First Ministers, that before it be allowed to end, if that was the possibility that might happen, First Ministers should definitely get together and see whether there were other options or alternatives that could be considered.
Second main question, Leader of the Opposition.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to direct the second set of questions to the Minister of Municipal Affairs, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, tenants across the province are struggling to cope with soaring rents and plummeting vacancy rates, Mr. Speaker. And last Friday, the minister said he's watching, I believe I'm quoting him right, he's watching the situation in Edmonton and Calgary closely, where the vacancy rates, according to our figures, are 1.9% in Edmonton, 0.7% in Calgary. Well, Mr. Speaker, to the minister, I'm not sure that renters are going to rest easy because he's watching the situation, Mr. Speaker. And I'd point out that's a provincial problem because the rates are very low in Lethbridge, 0.7% and 0.4%, or 0.7% in Red Deer, 0.4% in Lethbridge, so it's a provincial problem. Mr. Speaker, my question to the minister, other than watching the situation in Calgary and Edmonton, will the minister indicate precisely what policies he's going to bring in to protect the renters of this province?
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the question very much from the Honourable Leader of the Opposition. My colleague, the Minister of Consumer and Corporate Affairs, is looking at the areas in terms of rent review and various items such as that, and I would ask that the Minister comment on it further. In regards to my comments, Mr. Speaker, in terms of housing rental accommodation throughout the province of Alberta, the government of Alberta has done some significant things in the last year to provide more opportunity. For example, in our Family First Home program, some 18,000 people have taken that program and are now into their first home in the province of Alberta. Mr. Speaker, what that has done is released a lot of area of rental availability within the province. So that's been a very successful program as just one example. And Mr. Speaker, there are others that I could itemize as well.
Mr. Speaker, all the death slumping in the world isn't going to change the fact that we have a serious problem for renters in this province.
That's right.
Now, Mr. Speaker, a quote last October, the minister told a standing committee of the legislature, and I quote, "I believe that the marketplace should be allowed to have some tension." Mr. Speaker, my question, would the minister care to explain to the renters of Alberta how much more tense it's going to get before this government moves on it, Mr.
Mr. Speaker, as long as the Honourable Leader of the Opposition doesn't get too tense, I think that we can take the responsibility and move through this issue at the present time. Certainly there's tension in the marketplace at the present time. Rental rates are rising because of a couple of reasons. One, we've had an influx of population into the province of Alberta. We've had an influx of capital from outside of the province that has bought a lot of our real estate at the present time. There's an economy that's growing and heating up itself, which creates more activity and more demand in terms of residential, rental, private accommodation as such. And Mr. Speaker, those are the circumstances that create that kind of tension, and it's healthy. It's not an unhealthy thing in the marketplace. The most unhealthy thing is when you have maybe vacancy rates of 50% and everybody's leaving the province. Right. And Mr. Speaker, that's not happening in the province of Alberta.
Thank you. Final supplementary, Leader of the Opposition.
Devine would know about that.
Mr. Speaker, people in Lansdowne Park have been forced up 20 to 40%, and the minister's talking about healthy, Mr. Speaker. Where are they going to move to? But my question then to the Minister of Consumer and Corporate Affairs, rather than talk and rhetoric about how great things are, would this minister at least be prepared to bring in a system, a fair system of rent review to make sure that rent increases are reasonable and that they're not gouging ordinary renters in this province?
Mr. Speaker, my colleague, the Minister of Municipal Affairs, certainly identified the ultimate solution to the problem of rising interest rates, and that is rising development of accommodation. And he's been working well and hard with the industry to try and make sure that takes place. My responsibility is to ensure that there is a fair relationship between landlord and tenant. And yes, we're reviewing the Act to see whether or not there are changes we could make to assist individuals who have to make judgments regarding their accommodation and landlords regarding what they will do with those places in the market. We have established a task force which should soon report, that consists of tenants and of landlords, and which has talked to Albertans throughout the province. And I'll be looking forward to their recommendations with regards to topics such as rent review. Our preliminary review of circumstances in a similar situation in other parts of Canada would show that rent review has some difficulties. How do you administer it? Who, in fact, makes a determination on what's just and what's not just? How do you adjust for the fact, in Alberta in particular, where landlords have lost dollars over a period of time and are able to, in a moving market, reach an equal point? Who's to make all of those judgments, and how do you do it without expensive cost to the taxpayers? Having said that, there's no question about a need...
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Thank you, Honourable Minister. Leader of the Liberal Party, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Forestry. 8 or 10 weeks ago, the Minister of Environment made a number of comments with respect to the Ministry of Forestry, most notably that there appeared to be an apparent conflict in him managing his department. Also that it was difficult to serve two masters, that of preserving forests and that of developing forests. Does the Minister of Forestry agree that there is this conflict, with preservation and with development?
No, Mr. Speaker.
Is this then, Mr. Minister, the reason that you refuse to allow staff, your ministerial staff, your department staff, to appear before the ALPAC hearing process to make statements on preservation of fish or wildlife or forestry?
Mr. Speaker, on the second day of the hearings of the ALPAC board, I had one of my senior forestry people did appear at the Alberta Pacific hearing process and spent an hour and a half answering questions. In addition to that, the jurisdictional responsibility on water management in this province is divided between 3 responsibilities. One of the responsibilities is with the Department of Environment in the province of Alberta. It's also with Fisheries and Oceans Canada, as well as with Health and Welfare Canada. And the testing that's done with respect to health of fish is done by Health and Welfare Canada working in cooperation with the province. My department collects the fish and sends them on for the testing that needs to be done. So, Mr. Speaker, there is no conflict whatsoever, and the studies are there and speak for themselves.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Minister, if you see no conflict, there's no conflict in your mind, would you define for this legislature what your obligation, your ministry's obligation is to the preservation of the forests, the wildlife, the land, the sea, the ocean, the rivers, in this whole context of economic development of those forests? What is the definition then?
Mr. Speaker, it's spelled out very clearly in my annual report year after year. And really, my department is a conservation department, but it works with a variety of interest groups, some consumptive users and non-consumptive users, whether it be in fish and wildlife. There are people who like to hunt. There are people who don't like hunting and like to watch. There are people who like a variety of things, and it's a competing interest, and my department works in that area. With respect to conservation, we protect the forest from forest fires because it's far better to use that wood than to see it burn. So we conserve, but we also are responsible for proper management. And Mr. Speaker, we're recognized worldwide for our management practices that we have in forestry. And if there's some indication from the opposition that there is something that isn't right, bring it to my attention.
Member for Red Deer North, followed by Edmonton Jasper, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Economic Development and Trade. Mr. Speaker, we're all well aware that the Soviet Union has been undergoing dramatic changes of late, and we're also aware that the Alberta government has some sort of memorandum of understanding with the Soviet Union regarding trade possibilities. Now, Mr. Speaker, these types of agreements can be effective or they can be just so much window dressing. And I'm wondering, would the Minister please tell us if he's actually doing some follow-up on this memorandum of understanding so it will be worth more than just the paper it's written on.
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to leave the honourable member and members of the Legislative Assembly with the assurance that it is more than simply window dressing. We have a number of agreements with the Soviet Union, one directly with the government of Russia that relates to agriculture. The Minister of Foreign and Intergovernmental Affairs just recently signed another memorandum of understanding, which I'm sure he would like to supplement my question or my answer, but I want to leave the honourable member with the assurance that we as a trading province recognize that it is important that we have markets other than our own, and we're going to continue to work with those markets, especially as we go through the liberalization process in the Soviet Union itself.
Well, Mr. Speaker, not just the Soviet Union, but in fact all of Eastern Europe is opening up. And has the minister put all of his trade initiative just in the Soviet Union basket, or is he also looking to the rest of Eastern Europe, which has got demand for product, technology, and marketplace incentives?
Mr. Speaker, we're working throughout the entire world whereby we trade with in excess of 140 countries. Eastern Europe is a very important part of those trading patterns that we presently enjoy within the province of Alberta. Edmonton Jasper, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bleachcraft pulp mills of the sort endorsed by this government use our rivers as sewers and our trees as grist for mills in Japan and the United States. On Friday, we discussed the problem of fish samples having their dioxin levels recalculated by the Department of the Environment. Today, I'd like to ask the Minister of the Environment about a list of 36 dates in the last 2 years on which Procter & Gamble has been allowed by the department to exceed permitted levels for suspended solids. I want to ask in particular, in view of the link between suspended solids and dioxin and furan, if the minister would explain why we have standards in the province of Alberta if the companies are allowed to exceed them in any case.
Well, Mr. Speaker, with respect to the alleged 36 incidents, I'll have to take that under advisement. I just don't have it at my fingertips right now, and we'll see what we can do to get the information. But I find it very, very strange indeed, Mr. Speaker, that we would establish in this province the highest standards in the world relative to environmental protection as they relate to bleachcraft mills and other pulp mills. And the honourable member from Jasper Place would stand up at a public meeting on Friday and say that there should be a moratorium on mills, but the one mill that he referred to, the one of Procter & Gamble, can go ahead. Well, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member may be interested to know that that mill has been ordered to refit to bring it up to world standards. And it will be one also of the finest mills in the world in terms of environmental protection.
Well, it is strange if the minister doesn't know about 36 dates in which the permit levels were exceeded by sometimes double the allowable level. And the department's handling of Procter & Gamble is a very important yardstick of how much of this talk about state-of-the-art and wonderful new pulp mills is to be believed by Albertans. So I asked the question that I asked the minister last Friday: why is it that this department has failed to issue health warnings about unauthorized dumping and dioxin and river water that looks like this and smells even worse out of the Wapiti River?
Thank you, honourable member. Pages, please remove the exhibit. Order, please, honourable minister, till we get this business straightened away. Minister of the Environment.
I'm sorry, what was the question, Mr. Speaker?
No, I'm sorry. Thank you. Chair recognizes Edmonton Centre. Edmonton Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister of Health is radically changing the funding process for Alberta's acute care hospitals, which will make some winners and a lot losers in the hospital sector in the province. In fact, in this memo, which I'd be willing to file, Mr. Speaker, the Vice President of Finance of the University of Alberta Hospital says that the model proposed by the Department of Health has a number of components which are not yet complete or accurate, yet will reduce the hospital's funding by $2.5 million. I'm wondering then, to the Minister of Health, will she admit that this radical new funding formula is incomplete and inaccurate and will result in putting further strains on an already strained hospital at the University of Alberta and at regional and rural levels throughout the province?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we have an interesting turn of coat with respect to the member for Edmonton Centre with respect to his continual position that he's taken in this legislature, that we increase accountability within our acute care funding system, and also that we reallocate resources from our acute care side into the community side. Here we have him now looking at, in fact, the acute care side, which in fact the province has been concerned about for some time, because there is an inconsistency with respect to how we fund hospital cases and how we fund severity of illness across the province. I responded to the resolutions which had been placed by the Alberta Hospital Association, the Alberta Medical Association, and many others around the province, that we needed to look at our system of primarily inputs into our acute care funding and rather start to be looking at outputs on that. That is the purpose of this study, and I will be working with the hospitals who have certainly been part of the work that's gone on a steering committee relationship to date, and will be pleased to report to the House as the study proceeds.
Well, it's an interesting turncoat of the minister, Mr. Speaker, who builds these huge hospitals and then squeezes down their operational funds year after year, particularly for nurses as well. Well, the minister who knows well that Albertans have just had enough of this government's cutting back services in the institutional and community side, have tolerated increasing waiting lists, have seen nurses leave the province, and now this hospital funding system is going to make the system a lot worse, just at a time when United Nurses of Alberta, Mr. Speaker, at a news conference today have said that improved wage settlements are not in the cards for them, and they're getting angry about that. Now, enough is enough.
Thank you. Enough is enough indeed, Honourable Member. If it's a question, order, please, order. The member have the succinct question? What's the question?
Some clarification after question period, Mr. Speaker. So given the serious implications of these cutbacks, through whatever funding mechanism, as ever inadequate as it is, how can the minister possibly go ahead and implement this when it will not either threaten patient care or force another nurses' strike in the province?
Well, Mr. Speaker, indeed the issues within health are issues that are exceedingly complex and need to be managed in a careful and well thought out way. Through the acute care funding study, we are actually getting measures into our funding for hospitals, which will ensure that we can build incentives into our funding system in order that outpatient services will be rewarded, in order that we can minimize the amount of people being admitted into our hospitals and instead serve them on an outpatient basis. This is all part of the acute care funding study. I just want to lay before the legislature to the members who are part of the steering committee of this project. It includes 4 members from the Alberta Hospital Association, 2 members from the Council of Teaching Hospital of Alberta, including the University of Alberta Hospital, which of course is a teaching hospital in our province, representation from the Alberta Association of Registered Nurses and the Alberta Medical Association, and 3 representatives from Alberta Health. I have every confidence in the work of these people towards ensuring that our acute care funding system is in fact funding need, is in fact putting our health dollars where they have the greatest benefit for all Albertans, and the complexities of the issues are some that I'm sure the honourable member and I will be walking through a great deal during this session of the legislature.
Edmonton Meadowlark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to return to the conflict of interest within the Department of Forestry, Lands and Wildlife between that ministry's responsibility for promoting pulp mills on the one hand and protecting wildlife, fish, and forests on the other hand. Is that conflict of interest not the reason why this minister has so adamantly opposed the establishment of an open and public environmental impact assessment process for Diashawa, Weldwood, and Alberta Energy Company, at least like the one that was done for the ALPAC project?
Where were you, Mitchell? Mr. Speaker, with respect to the environmental impact assessments, I'll ask the Minister of Environment to supplement my answer. But there's no perception, should be no perception in anyone's mind about a conflict of interest. I thought I've explained that quite well, in that there is a management of a resource, whether it be fish and wildlife or whatever. There are other jurisdictions that also have responsibility. There's responsibility on the river basin planning, which is under the Department of Environment. The quality of the water in the river, whether it be from industrial or from municipal waste, is also under that department's responsibility. So there should be no perception in anyone's mind, Mr. Speaker, that there is any conflict within my department. But the Minister of the Environment may wish to respond to the environmental impact assessment process.
Mr. Speaker, as the Honourable Premier pointed out in the speech from the throne, the whole environmental impact assessment process is being reviewed, and it's going to be strengthened. It's probably become one of the most comprehensive processes in this country, just as our mills are probably the safest in the country. Now, if the Honourable Member from Meadowlark is so concerned about the quality of pulp mills, I would remind them there are 176 pulp mills in this country. And if he's really concerned, then he should speak to his Liberal buddies in Ontario, his Liberal buddies in Quebec, and his Liberal buddies in New Brunswick. Yeah. And he'll really find out what belching, rotten, stinking, polluting pulp mills are all about.
Mr. Speaker, with respect to the issue of conflict of interest, certainly Ralph Klein stated very clearly on January 9th, 1990, that he felt the Minister of Forestry had a conflict of interest. Is that conflict of interest not the reason why this minister has failed to hold an open public environmental impact assessment into the forestry management area associated with the ALPAC project?
No, Mr. Speaker.
Westlock Sturgeon, followed by Highwood, then Edmonton Belmont.
Mr. Speaker, if I may get back to touch on the question of the conflict of interest with the Minister of Forestry, Lands and Wildlife. Is there not a conflict, or is the fact that he realizes there's a conflict of interest the reason behind that he's not asked for an Environmental Assessment Act for all forestry management agreements, not just the mills?
Good question. The answer.
Next order. Mr. Speaker, that's the same question all over again, and it must be a little collusion going over there.
We only had one researcher.
Only one researcher working on it. Mr. Speaker, with respect to an environmental impact assessment on forestry operations themselves, we've had two class environmental impact assessments done on forestry operations. I gave a commitment that I was going to see that the public had a full and open opportunity to not only review forest management agreements, but harvesting plans, and have meaningful input, not just once, but year after year after year. I've made that commitment, Mr. Speaker, and I'll live up to it.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, coffee parties aren't public hearings. The conflict of interest, the main reason why the minister is giving away 1/3 of Alberta to private companies for logging and pulp mills, as opposed to whereas he should be working with Dr. West, the Minister of Recreation and Parks, establishing and promoting ecological areas and establishment of more provincial parks, in addition to the little small one you did in Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, I can't believe that you can send information over there, but they don't seem to understand it. We work very close with Recreation and Parks in my department. In fact, where do you think the Lakeland recreation area is? But in the Alberta Pacific's area for forest management, and I'm very supportive of that. I'm also very supportive of establishing natural areas and seeing more representative samples across this province made of the land base that we have. If you look at the percentage in national parks and provincial parks and protected areas in this province, there's no one can even come close to us, and we're not satisfied with that. Working with a number of ministries in our government, the Premier is committed to saying that we do have proper and full recreation opportunities and representative areas across this province. So, Mr. Speaker, any illusion that we don't is wrong.
Highwood, followed by Edmonton Belmont.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's at this time of year that one is reminded of how good a glass of fine Nanton spring water tastes. Nanton spring water is located in the beautiful constituency of Highwood. Unfortunately, it was recently placed in the hands of a receiver. So my question today, Mr. Speaker, is to the Minister of Economic Development and Trade. Will the Minister assure this Assembly that his department will take active steps to ensure that Nanton spring water will continue to operate and employ people in the town of Nanton?
Mr. Speaker, let me leave the honourable member with the assurance and to indicate also my appreciation to him for his sincere interest in this issue, that we will do everything within our power to see that it does maintain itself in Nanton. We are working very closely with the receivers and with the individuals in the locality, plus with the honourable member, and I'm happy to receive any advice that he might have to offer myself or our department as to how we can achieve the goal that we both desire.
Okay, thank you. Will the Minister support then and encourage local Albertans in the area to invest in this business firm?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'm more than happy with individuals from that locality and with my department and with the honourable member so that, as I indicated earlier, we can achieve the goals that we both desire.
Edmonton Belmont.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll direct my question, I suppose, to the provincial treasurer. Today in Calgary, there were 160 workers at the Lakeside Centennial plant that were locked out by management because the workers refused to accept a wage rollback. Now, given this government's penchant for handing out money in the red meat industry, we're not too surprised to learn that Lakeside Centennial has received some $25 million in loan guarantees, $15 million of which have been drawn down, and venture capital is involved in there to the tune of $5 million as well. Just wondering, would the provincial treasurer commit that there will be no more public funds going to the company during the duration of the lockout or the industrial dispute?
Mr. Speaker, I think that question should be properly directed either to the Minister of Agriculture or to the Minister of Labour. I wasn't too sure what point was being made here, but I don't think it's a question for the Minister or the Provincial Treasurer.
Well, I don't know who else handles public funds in the province other than the Provincial Treasurer. If you don't want to answer the question, that's fine. But I'll direct my supplementary then to the Minister of Labour. One need only look at strike situations in our province, Ziedler's, Whitkey and Medicine Hat. Ziedler's, as I said, in Slave Lake and Edmonton. And I'm just wondering if the government would commit to introduce an amendment to the code, and if that's too difficult to draft legislation, would you adopt Bill 213, which would prohibit the use of strike breakers during an industrial dispute?
Mr. Speaker, the Labor Relations Code, in fact, does build a balance in here. What it allows is for an employer during a dispute to hire replacement workers, and of course it also allows those people who are on strike or locked out to go and find jobs for themselves in the meantime, so that there is an economic balance on both sides. I've looked at the experience across Canada in other codes, and I found, in fact, there's only one other province in Canada that does ban replacement workers, and that is Quebec. And they've had it now for some 10 years. So it's a good example to look to see what kind of effect there would be if an amendment were made such as the honourable member has suggested.
In fact, it turns out that Quebec has one of the worst records in work stoppages across Canada. They have more days lost due to strikes and lockouts. And in fact, after they brought in the very amendment that the member is suggesting, their time lost to strikes and lockouts escalated by 15%. So I think from looking at the Quebec experience, it is not something that leads to labor stability. In fact, it seems to lead to more difficulty for the workers who are in fact the ones who are most impacted by a strike or a lockout.
Drayton Valley, followed by Calgary Forest Lawn and Calgary Northwest.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the last few days, there's been an ad appearing in some of the urban papers primarily that is criticizing the proposed sale of AGT or the supposed sale of AGT and raising some concerns to my constituents about the future of AGT as far as they're concerned. My question would be to the Minister of Technology, Research and Telecommunications. Mr. Minister, do these claims have any validity or any basis in fact, and can you reassure some of my people about that?
Mr. Speaker, I did see the ad to which the honourable member refers, and I think it was very unfortunate because it does contain a number of unwarranted claims, in fact, many representations that are just totally not correct. There are, in fact, changes, many changes that are occurring in the telecommunications industry, and those changes are, in fact, worldwide. And those changes will impact upon AGT, and indeed, whether it was a Crown Corporation or under any other form of ownership. Those changes relate to competition, deregulation, changes in technology which impact upon the need for capital. There's changes with respect to the regulatory regime. There are many changes, and therefore we are looking at all ways and means of addressing those changes and identifying the choices. But in any event, we will be making that choice at some point which will reflect the real interests of Albertans in the telecommunications industry.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Minister, can you give any assurance to my constituents that these concerns are being adequately addressed before any supposed sale takes place?
Mr. Speaker, I can assure the honourable member that regardless of whatever option may ultimately be selected relative to AGT, that under any circumstances, rates and services will be continued to be regulated in the public interest. Rural programs and services will indeed be safeguarded, and the best interests of employees will always be taken into account. At the same time, Albertans will continue to own and manage AGT in the future.
Calgary Forest Lawn, then Calgary Northwest, then Edmonton Homes.
Mr. Speaker, I think it's appalling that the federal government would create huge expectations among all Albertans, but particularly those at Fort McMurray, by promising support for the Oslo project, and then without any apparent consultation with Albertans, pull out of the project. And they did this in advance of the final engineering studies, without the cost-benefit analysis studies being completed, without any regard for securing a long-term energy supply for all Canadians. My question, Mr. Speaker, is to the Minister of Energy. What positive initiatives, if any, is the Minister taking to reverse the federal position, or is he just prepared to roll over and play dead when it comes to dealing with his federal cousins?
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to see the member for Calgary Forest Lawn appropriately supports the proceeding through the engineering phase into the construction phase of the Oslo project. It is an important initiative not only for Alberta in terms of job creation and economic initiative, but it's an issue that's important to all Canadians as we see our conventional crude oil in this country declining. We are looking at all the options. The Oslo participants have examined the current situation with regard to the federal government pulling out. All I can tell the honourable member is that it is unfortunate. I think it's short-sighted on behalf of the federal government. We will continue to point out to them the importance of this project, and I can tell the honourable member for Calgary Forest Lawn that I've had a conversation with the Minister of Energy for the province of Ontario, pointing out to them, our biggest consumer of oil, Mr. Speaker, how important this project is to the future long-term security of their province.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At least the former Premier Lougheed was prepared to stand up for Albertans. My question is to the Deputy Premier. Is he now prepared to admit that his government made a mistake by spending almost $1 million of public money to help elect a federal Tory government when they treat Albertans so shabbily?
Mr. Speaker, how one ties in the fact that our government supported a free trade agreement with the United States and the Oslo subject, which has been adequately answered by my colleague, the Minister of Energy, is beyond me, except in the minds of the socialists who tie everything in together, and government, everything government does is exactly the same thing. Of course we supported the free trade agreement, and we still support it, Mr. Speaker, because it is a good deal for Canada, and particularly for Alberta. And I don't back down from that one iota. I don't agree with the Oslo question, but that doesn't mean that I disagree with them on the free trade agreement. And unlike the members of the opposition, Mr. Speaker, who follow what their federal party says like blind sheep, we don't propose to do the same.
Calgary Northwest, followed by Edmonton Highlands. Calgary Northwest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to return to the issue raised earlier by my colleagues regarding the conflict of interest within the Department of Forestry, Lands and Wildlife. And I'd like to ask the question that I would ask, Mr. Speaker, is this.
Give them a chance to learn.
If there is no conflict of interest within the department, could the minister explain, please, why he is unwilling to have an environmental impact assessment done on the Sun Pine sawmill development in Rocky Mountain House?
I don't know. He was looking over there, Mr. Speaker, and...
Can't see the guy.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you to the honourable member, Mr. Speaker. The issue of an environmental impact assessment for the Sun Pine project near Rocky Mountain House is under consideration.
Could the minister explain, and please, the Minister of Forestry, Lands and Wildlife, please explain the how he resolves the conflict of interest that results from a government investing over $1 billion in loans and guarantees to the forest industry, and yet the companies concerned do not meet our government standards.
May we have unanimous consent to complete this series of questions? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Minister of Forestry, Lands and Wildlife.
The answer is really simple. I'll say it slowly. That no project will proceed unless it's environmentally safe and meets the government standards, period.
From a previous points of order, the chair understands the possibility of having points of order from Edmonton Jasper Place, also Westlock Sturgeon, and the possibility of two other locations. Edmonton Jasper Place.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Friday in the House, the Minister of the Environment stated, if the opposition would do their research in the library rather than depending on the Edmonton Journal for their research, they might get the facts right. This report, which he waved in the air, which contains full disclosure of the results, was tabled as a sessional paper on May 24th, 1988. He went on, Mr. Speaker, to elaborate on the report. Well, I did take him up on his challenge and went to the library and found first that the House did not sit on May 24th, 1988. Secondly, that there was no sessional paper ever tabled that remotely resembles the one referred to by the minister. Thirdly, the only thing that may be even close to it was a press release issued by Health and Welfare Canada. And I wondered, in view of the conventions and rules of the House, if the minister might now table the document he waved around, and thus ending the lesson in research.
Minister of the Environment on the point of order. Purported point of order.
On the point of order, Mr. Speaker, I will take the matter under consideration and so advise the House. Not, Mr. Speaker, not that there is anything to hide, and certainly I can take the honourable member through the process that was followed at this particular time. And in fact, Alberta released the results, a press release and a sessional paper on the on the 24th day of May in 1988. At that time, the sessional paper number was 52488, tabled on May 18th, 1988. And at that time, results were expressed in terms of whole fish and edible portions. The calculations used to derive the edible portions were based on advice from Health and Welfare Canada and Fisheries and Oceans Canada. So I've given the honourable member the reference number, and perhaps he can do a little more research. Obviously, the Edmonton Journal is not going to print that kind of information.
Chair recognizes Westlock Sturgeon on point of order for today. The chair takes that the previous information will be considered by both members. Westlock Sturgeon.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, today when you asked for suspension to whether or not I could file the list of resolutions that had been considered in the Standing Committee in the Heritage Trust Fund, I gather you will be coming up in the next day or two with the decision, but I wanted to put in my reasons for filing it, knowing full well that Rules of Orders 65, subsection 2 says a minority report of a standing committee cannot be filed. This is not a minority report, I would say, Mr. Speaker, in that, first of all, is not titled a minority report. Secondly, there was no opinion expressed. All it is a list of resolutions and movers that were not passed. Next, Mr. Speaker, those resolutions are available to the public now if you dig through the answers of the meetings that we had over the past year. Just puts them all together in one area, so there's no secrets being given away. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I think in filing, or when the people read the report, that this is also read in conjunction later with it, they will realize and they will understand the broad cross-section of issues that our committee did attack, and that all the report shows is what was approved. It doesn't show the broad discussion and the resolutions that were moved by various members on both sides of the House that were defeated.
Thank you. Deferred. Other points of order? With respect to previous question period, member for Vegreville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With respect to your request that I examine the blues with regards to a possible withdrawal of a remark I made on Friday, I noticed that I did accuse the government of said that they deliberately hid the truth with regards to certain documentation and evidence. Well, I couldn't find any reference in Beauchesne to deliberately hiding the truth, and differentiate that from misstating the truth or not telling the truth or deliberately misleading. I believe it's a contention I can prove over time, and will attempt to do that, but in the context of what was said Friday, if the Premier felt that the remarks were directed at him personally, I want to assure him that they weren't, and if it be the wish of the Chair that I withdraw the remark, I'll do that.
Take it as withdrawn, honourable member. We're dealing with Vegreville still, thank you.
I then withdraw the remark, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, honourable member. It's customary in such circumstances for the House to at least applaud the member for doing so. Thank you. The Chair would also like to point out that an examination of Hansard on page 9 that the honourable member for Edmonton Meadowlark was perilously close to giving the House considerable difficulty when it talks, when a statement was made in the opening sentence that should have at least included the word allegedly. Allegedly. Perhaps all members could take greater care with phrasing their questions in future. Thank you. I think we're now headed to deal with point of privilege, Edmonton Jasper Place.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise on a question of privilege. During the first session of this legislature, the House approved an order for return seeking a copy of the report on the survey of photolineation in the Oldman River region prepared by J.D. Millard. On, I believe, the last day of the session, the minister tabled a response indicating the information provided to the department regarding Dr. Millard's findings is summarized in a different report, and it goes on to say Dr. Millard has not prepared a specific report for the department on photolineation in the Oldman River region. Consequently, the report was not tabled. I would like to make a few points for the consideration of Your Honor. At no time did I specify that I was seeking a report prepared for the department. In fact, the request was general, and it was and is an order of this Assembly. My motion was accepted by the Minister and voted on by the House, and therefore it's an order of the House and not a matter of discretion. The suggestion in the material tabled was to the effect that no such report exists. I did re-examine the Old Man River Dam review of Greggs & Associates report, June 1989, which was tabled by the Minister, and it indicates very clearly that Dr. J.D. Millard prepared a preliminary regional geography report for the Old Man River project that provided input on reservoir geology and erosion to Stanley Associates Engineering Limited and their subconsultant Clone Leanoff Limited. This indicates, Mr. Speaker, the report was prepared, that it was prepared using public funds, and that it is part of this research project, which we're all very concerned about. Just so members understand what we're talking about, this is the suggestion that there may be some instability in the geological structure in the vicinity of the dam, so it's a very important matter. And I simply would make the point that when the Assembly passes an order, it's not an option whether the material is to be provided or not. And whether the material continues to be housed in the files of Stanley Associates or Clone Leanoff Limited is not particularly relevant. This is an order of the House, and it is a document, it is a report, as acknowledged in the material filed by the Minister. And it was prepared at public expense. So I'm speaking not simply of the public interest, but the fact that there's an order of the Assembly which is not presently complied for and is therefore a breach of privilege.
Minister, Public Works, Supply and Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Today, the member from Jasper Place has made some comments with respect to a purported matter of privilege, but as I recall, he did not cite any quotations from any of the rules associated with the House to verify, in fact, a matter of privilege with respect to this matter. Mr. Speaker, as well, I want to point out at the outset that in a handwritten note dated March the 8th, 1990, in a handwritten note to the Speaker, the member wrote, and I quote, "The Assembly's order has not been complied with," end quote. And further, and I quote, "I refer as well to the attached excerpt from the review of Greggs & Associates report, June 89, which refers at page 64 to a report prepared for this project," end quote. Mr. Speaker, when this motion for return was accepted, a great deal of research was expended searching for, and I quote, "a copy of the report on the survey on photolineation in the Old Man River region," end quote, prepared by J.D. Millard. I was assured then that the government of Alberta was unaware of such a report titled, and I quote again, "Survey on photolineation in the Old Man River region," end quote. That assurance was provided by the consultants employed in the Old Man River Dam project, namely UMA Engineering Limited in association with Acres International, with Stanley Associates Engineering, with Clone Leanoff, and was verified to me by my Deputy Minister, Mr. Ed McClellan, my Assistant Deputy Minister, Mr. Dan Bader, and my Executive Director of Reservoir Development, Mr. Jake Thiessen. Upon that review and verification, the response to motion to return 201 was filed with the Legislative Assembly on August 16, 1989, and it was filed as sessional paper number 20189, Mr. Speaker. The response was a clear one and a specific one, and I quote from the response that was filed. "The information provided to the Department regarding Dr. Millard's findings is summarized in the review of Greggs & Associates report, June 1989, which was previously tabled," end quote. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to emphasize